Right, hello and welcome to this week's angling vlog. Today you join me on the banks of the River Ribble and we're in search of dace. Conditions today are really good for fishing. Overcast, gloomy, you know, a bit of rain in the air are good conditions for going fishing. What they're not good conditions for are filming. So I do apologise if parts of the video have got music over, or there is a bit of wind on the video, or it is a bit gloomy. There really isn't much you can do about it. It is overcast and dark. Have you ever had one of them days in work where nothing's going right? You know, you don't want to be there, you're looking out the window wishing you were fishing, and yeah, your mind certainly isn't on work. Well, I had one of them yesterday, so what I did was I booked a day's leave for the following day, knowing the river would be dropping, we'd be in chance, you know, for a few bites, and lo and behold, we've arrived on the banks, it's gloomy, raining, and to top it off, I've left my brolly in the hall. So I hope you guys are nice and warm at home in your houses watching the vlog. Bankside, it's wet, windy, and either way today we're going to get a bit damp. So you actually joined me an hour into the session, and it's only now that I've just started to get a few bites. Been putting the hemp and the maggots into the swim, the ground bait, but it's taken about an hour to get a few bites on the swim, and that isn't shocking really. The river itself, like all the ones in the country, has been easily over that bank behind me and into the fields, and when the floods are that bad, record floods, it can, you know, affect the fishing when it begins to come down. You know, the shoals can be pushed into areas that they don't naturally want to be in, you know, slacks that might be further down river or tight into the bank, and it's not ideal, but it doesn't surprise me that it's taken an hour, you know, to start getting one or two bites. Let's have a look at the side tray that we're going to be using today and the tackle. The rod that I'll be using today is the Korum Glide, and I've got it at 14 foot. The river behind me, as we'll go over in a minute, is fast on the far bank, and the area of the swim that I'm going to be targeting isn't going to be too far out. So a nice 14 foot rod, and as we've seen before, it's more than capable of dealing with chub, but more importantly, them fine biting dace. I've teamed that up with a korum axis reel, and on there I've got 4 pound 4 ounce float fish from Drennan. Down to the business end I've got a 10 number 4, and I've got a wire stem just to give me some stability in the water. And because we're going to be dragging bottom today, I've got a dome top float, will help me drag the shot along the bottom. And I've got that down to a bulk shot of Dinsmore number 4s, and that is just to get the bait down in them lower layers. As you'll see in a minute, the bait that we're going to use is going to be targeting them fish on the bottom, and with this pace of the river you want to make sure that you're going down in control of the river and the river not in control of you. That bulk shot will enable me to do that. I've got that down to quite a long hook link of 2 pound 1 ounce Bay of Purlon to a size 18 hook, and on there we're going to be fishing maggot and maybe tears. So that's the rod. Let's take a look at the bait and the swim. When I'm going to use ground bait, the first thing I do when I arrive on the peg is mix the ground bait. I've said it before in the vlog, if you get it mixed when you arrive, get the water into it, really agitate that ground bait, get into the corners and get that water into the ground bait, then you can put it to one side while you're setting the rod and the reel and you swim up. So let's have a look at the rest of the bait and the swim that we're going to fish today. One of the things that I really like about river fishing is its simplicity. You've literally got 3 bank sticks, and with that you've got your rod rest, your keep net and your bait waiter. With a landing net at the side, you're set for a day's stick float fishing. We have a look at the side tray. You've got Cheshire particle, hemp, and I've got a couple of tears mixed in there as well. On this side we've got around about 2 pints of red maggot. So looking at the sky, as you can see, it's a right grey miserable day, but not as miserable as being in work, that's for sure. Looking at the clarity on the river, you can see there is a bit of clarity but also a bit of colour, and that is why I've brought the ground bait with me today. I'm a fond believer that fish of all species use 2 senses, the sight and the smell. and depending on the conditions they're using one or the other. When there's colour in the water, that sense of smell is heightened, and that's why I've used the ground bait today. So looking at the swim over there, you can see got plenty of pace on the river. It's still finding off, but on this side you've got a much smoother glide, an even pace down the river, and it's much slower than on that side, and a nice even trot for running that float through. As I always say, think of the river like lanes, and this swim, like I've said before, is literally like that. You've got the fast lane on the motorway, the middle lane a bit slower, the side lane where it's even slower again. Today, them fish are going to be using less energy to stay in this part of it than they will over there. So, being on this side of the river and staying on that first third is where we're going to target. As you've seen at the start, I've been persevering with it, keep putting the bait in, and we've managed to pick up probably 4 or 5 fish. That tells me a few fish have arrived in the swim. So now is about keeping them there and attracting them in. Hopefully we won't get too wet and we'll get a break in the weather and we can begin to dry out a bit. So let's get back to it. So the first trot down after doing the intro, and we're into another one, and it does seem like there are 1 or 2 fish about, but it has taken a while for them to arrive today. You know, quite a lot of trotting at the start, but we're just starting now to get 1 or 2 bites. So one thing you have got to do when you're not getting the bites is keep feeding that hemp and the maggots and that ground bait into the swim, because that is what is going to draw them fish in to your line. And as I've said before, the magic of river fishing is you can draw fish from 100 yards down the river, from across the river onto your line. So all around us there are signs that spring is just around the corner. The daffodils and the days just getting that little bit longer. But when it comes to river fishing, plump dace like that tell you that the end of the river season is not far away, and spring is definitely just around the corner. So the decision to leave the brolly at home, beginning to regret. It isn't half coming over that hill behind me, and as you can see, the rain, that fine rain that Peter Kay says soaks you through. There's one thing I'm glad I didn't forget to pack this morning, and that is the flask. On days like this, just a warm brew. They're never the greatest when you make them at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, but it's warm and it's wet, and that's all that matters. Conditions not really improved much, so the conditions are hindering filming with the GoPro. So when we get into the editing, when we come to make this vlog, we'll see what we can do. But it's real fishing, isn't it? It's forgetting your brolly, it raining, but not being in work, and that's what this channel's all about. It's just a guy going fishing and enjoying it. Another silver dart a lovely fish. So the hooks that I'm using today are the Camazan eyed barbed animal hooks, and one thing I would say is if you are going to target dace, definitely go with a barbed or a micro barbed. Dace, the way they turn in the flow, if you use the barbless hook, you just keep spinning off the line. You know, if you're going to target dace, almost certainly a micro barbed or a barbed hook is essential. I have tried barbless in the past and you lose so many fish as you're reeling in. It's just the way they fight in the water against the flow. Just one or two dace now, just coming onto that line proper. And like I always say with dace, where there's one, there's always more. They really are one of them fish that gives you confidence on the river. You know, chub can be quite solitary sometimes, and roach, but with dace, if you ever see them in clear water, they're never alone. And I guess it's going to be one of them days where we are going to get them rain showers, so you've got to make the most of these gaps. And a day off work, does it really matter what the weather's doing? And that's another winter dace, and how I'm going to miss being on the banks chasing these fish when the season ends. That's a fair old bit of tree just trundling its way down the river, and all of a sudden there's been quite a lot of debris come down the river. Doesn't look like it's coloured up much or got any higher, but all of a sudden there's been a few bits coming down, which might mean that it's rising further up. On a spate river like this, you really have got to have your wits about you. There's a reason why it's fishable at the moment, and that's because it empties fast, but on the other score it also fills up very fast as well. So you've got to keep your eye on it, and so far it doesn't seem to be coming up. Just another dace, feels like coming just towards the end of the swim, and that dace's skin is as rough as sandpaper. Another sign that these fish are near enough ready to spawn. Best dace of the day so far. The sun's come out, and this day's to celebrate it. Hopefully it can dry off a bit before the next shower arrives, but that's a lovely day start, and boy am I going to miss these guys in about 2 weeks time. Let's get it straight back. And like I said at the start, the reason why I love river fishing is how you can start off looking like you're not going to get a bite, then get the odd one or two here and there, and then you keep at it, and fish can arrive at any moment in the. And one thing with rivers that seems to be the case is people are almost scared of trying them. They see them as daunting, and as you can see today, it's simple tactics, just a float, weights on the line, a hook link, and I'm not casting to the other side of the river, I'm just flicking a rod length out. And if you have got a river near you, you know, go out and give it a go. Trotting is something that does take time and practice to get the hang of, but once you've got the hang of it and holding back and letting the line come off the reel and striking, the actual cost of a day's fishing on the river isn't too expensive. As you can see down here, I've literally got 3 bank sticks, some bait and a keep net. And if you are going to give river fishing a go, like so many people do who comment on the channel, who say they've gone and tried it for the first time, you have to put your homework in to find where the fish are. Now if you imagine a lake, and the fish might shoal at one end of the lake, and it can be quite, you know, easy to find where they are on a lake. If you times that to a river that could be, you know, 50, 60, 70 miles long, there'll be certain areas where the fish shoal in winter, normally where they come to breed, or where, you know, in the towns where the conditions are slightly warmer or protected. And we'll call that one the last fish of the session, and we'll take a look at that final net and see how we've done. And like all anglers, that's never the last cast, and that's a proper dace to finish the session on. Now we will take a look at that final net and just see how we've done. And there's the final net, 26 pound, all dace. And when you think about it, we had 4 fish in the first hour. It just shows, you know, when them shoals can move in, you can have a good day's fishing. Let's get these fish back. I'd like to wish you all tight lines in your own fishing. Be great if you could like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all next week. Tight lines.